Okay. Yes. Aloha. I'm excited to talk tonight about something that I've been immersing myself in right now. And it is the Āina That Is Lāhainā. And this is a book that is surfing out into the wild on Monday, September 30th. And it is an offering. It is a manifesting in my soul a way for me to show up in the gifts that I feel that I have to uplift humanity in writing, in utilizing words medicinally, in honoring Lahaina and my island home, Maui, and our community, the pain and the purpose in the pain and the trauma and the triumph through the trauma, and the nonlinear healing path ahead, the ho'ola. And rewinding to August 2023, August 8th, 2023, when the wildfire tragedy occurred. We had Camden's 7th birthday party on August 6th, 2 days before, and I had organized like a mermaid tea party for her locally here in Kihei, and it was outside. It was like a small, intimate, like cute little tea party, and it was in the morning. Usually we have trade winds, and winds start picking up. We usually like to serve early. That's just a known thing that we get the trade winds picking up in the afternoon. So we had scheduled her mermaid tea party to be early, and there was the cutest little like beach parasols, and I had like a local cake made by this really talented mama of 4, and she did an amazing job. And another mama was doing the party that does like picnics and whimsical setups, was doing the mermaid tea party setup. Anyway, it had started to become really windy even that day. And one of my friends whose husband is an avid waterman and fisherman around the waters of the islands in Maui had said, yeah, the forecast is for like increasing winds and gusts. And we had to end up taking down the parasols, and like the mermaid balloons were blowing everywhere. And I remember the art crafts that I had set out for them to have crowns and draw mermaid stuff was blowing everywhere. And so we had to get creative with that party. And then we had actually flown off island for a scheduled trip for a family wedding in Washington State. So we had left on the next day, August 7th. And so then we were in the Seattle area and then going toward Eastern Washington. And I remember hearing the news of Lahaina and the wildfire tragedy and feeling the inflammation around what was happening, the mounting, like, and as the news continued to pour in and the story continued to evolve, and the degree of destruction and the magnitude of what had happened started to be portrayed, the horror that was unfolding, all of it, just being speechless and immediately trying to transition into what can I do for my community? How can I show up for my community? I've had the privilege of taking care of many Maui keiki, even upon first moving to Hawaii and living in Oahu and working at Kapiolani Medical Center for Women and Children, because that's the receiving center. That's our pediatric hospital for the state of Hawaii. So I've cared for many keiki from Hawaii, even Maui, excuse me, even before ever moving here 5.5 years ago. Lots of Lahaina keiki, and Lahaina is just a very special, unique town, city. It's important in its historical context in the state of Hawaii. It was once the capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom, where it's situated on a harbor and being nestled within some of the neighboring islands of Lanai and Molokai and Kolave. And we have the little atoll kind of crater island Molokini that's used as a snorkeling destination. But anyway, it's a fascinating place that many people around the world, internationally, it's recognized as this just gem of a spot, that people have been to, and they've lingered and meandered around the harbor, and they've made memories on along Front Street, which for me my roots in the Sunshine State and being from Florida for the first 3 decades of my life and having been to the Keys and Key West, Lahaina was kind of this Hawaiian hybrid of Key West and New Orleans, and but then obviously it's its own thing, but it just had elements of all of this vibrancy that we associated with those kind of destinations. And so I think Lahaina called in so many people, and it is a place of sacred memories for many, many people. And it is sacred to the Hawaiians and to the Hawaiian culture in its historical significance. There were many, many historical buildings along Front Street and in the town of Lahaina that dated very far back into the Kingdom of Hawaii. And anyway, so as I continue to consume whatever media and information was coming out of the stories of what had happened and the unfathomable degree of destruction and just the mind-blowing proportions of it, the apocalyptic pictures and images that were resulting, the devastation, the horror. I began praying for our island home, our neighbors, feeling that sense of kuleana, of responsibility, of aloha, to our neighbors, of showing them the aloha spirit in any way that I could. I started taking, brushing up on my trauma, counseling skills that I have from my background in counseling and as a physician, and attending some workshops remotely while we were still in the mainland. And upon coming home, I had a unique opportunity to collaborate with a colleague who is an incredible ultrasonographer, and she offers 3D prenatal imaging, celebrating the miraculous growths of these miracles of aloha growing. I actually got to do that when I was pregnant with Hapai, we say, with Coordinalu, and I love and treasure those images of her, 3D images of her face. And so we got together and held a free clinic in Wailuku town for Hapai expectant Lahaina mummies, free of charge for them to come and receive these pictures of their growing miracles of aloha. And so we reached out far and wide to the OBGYNs that I know on island, and were able to secure quite a few mamas that were directly and indirectly impacted by the wildfire tragedy. And that was a very impactful event to be able to host and be a part of, and hold space for their stories, and celebrate them in this chapter of their life, even as the uncertainty grew for what would happen when baby came, where would they live, what would they, so lots of swirling doubts and uncertainty, but that juxtaposition of life, and the promise of life that was growing within them was powerful. And my next door neighbor's home turned into a hub overnight. There was literally a neighborhood hub. Her garage became a hub for all kinds of families from Lahaina, Ohanas from Lahaina, and that were impacted were coming to shop. And people were donating various goods. I mean, she had everything in there. And that was really cool to help be a part of and see and witness and donate to. And then our church became a major hub on island for months. And the volunteers and the magnitude of organization and just willingness and the hands and feet of the spirit, and the spirit of aloha that was mobilized quickly, and watching the serving community and the watering community, for lack of better words, but the sailing marine community of Maui deploy resources as quickly as possible to get things to the west side of Maui, and to people who were cut off because of the roads being closed, with needed items, everything from medications to diapers to water to gasoline, whatever it was, as they awaited more response from a more national level. There was local efforts that were extremely efficient and amazing, and the pictures and the acts of aloha were undeniable. And it swelled in me such a sense of pride to belong to a community that was full of such love in the wake of such destruction and devastation. And so I went into the deep quiet. I took in the stories. I listened. Um, yeah, I heard the stories and I listened to our neighbors. And I knew that I wanted to contribute to the nonlinear healing path forward with a story. And one night, probably 2 months, roughly 2 months after the wildfire tragedy on August 8th, I was putting Cruz to bed, my middle son, and I was rubbing his back, and the story came, the divine downloads were just coming. And then the nudge was strong to get out the paper and pen and just write. And so I wrote the story in October, and it came pouring out of me in an act of aloha, like a literary, I imagined it as a literary tea leaf lay placing it upon Lahaina. Um, and my intention was for it to be historically accurate and honoring of Lahaina, its history. And I immediately knew I wanted to write it from the perspective of the banyan tree. The banyan tree on Maui is a internationally recognized ambassador of aloha, I like to say, on Front Street. And many of the images and the questions that came from the international community in response to the tragedy was like, how is the banyan tree doing? And it became a symbol of, it was burned, it was badly burned, and will it regenerate? Will it come back? And many people have core memories of meandering underneath its leafy aloha and its branches. And I remember being delighted at seeing it light up at Christmas time, the Melikaliki Maka sounds, as I wrote in the book. And each time that we would, and had the privilege and honor of going out of the harbor to commune and bask in the glory of our seasonal neighbors, the kohola or humpback whales that come and visit Maui, and the mommies that give birth here. We would walk underneath the banyan tree on our way to the harbor, and many, many times on our way home from delightful, glorious days drenched in another West Maui beach day, we would always choose the long way home along Front Street, drive along Front Street and stop and have a shave ice, rainbow shave ice, and kind of meander underneath the banyan tree with its leaves and branches going in every direction, and just such a respite from the hot sun. And Lahaina actually means merciless sun, at least in the way with the kahakos and the kinas in the diacritical marks in Olelo Hawaii language. And so I went on a deep dive writing this story with all of the lyrics that poured out of my head. And at the time, I was also very involved in our church hula halau, and that's what I also feel part of my kuleana and learning more about Hawaiian culture and immersing in it in this beautiful space and place that I get to live and raise my keiki alongside JD. So it felt as though the words were pouring out of me as a beautiful oli or chant, and that the lyrics had a musical melodic quality similar to the melody, like the hula that we danced to. And so as I felt they danced out of my soul and onto the page, I consulted Native Hawaiian speakers and linguistic, experts, as well as Native Hawaiians, so that I could ensure that as much as possible the story was historically accurate. And in that process, I learned that the banyan tree is not native to Hawaii. And so that was an important distinction for me to make in the story, that similar to many of us, it is not a native to this place, but it came to love and came to grow and came to put roots down and was accepted and celebrated, although it was not part of the landscape of an original Lahaina. And so I make that distinction in the book, that it witnessed so much of the history and was there, and it's shed its leaves and tears, I wrote in the book. And so it is the anchoring narrative element of the story, and the story is told and the illustrations are created from various perspectives of the banyan tree. And so as I continued to go on that quest, and it was important for me to infuse Olelo Hawaii Hawaiian words that are part of my everyday language lava flow, as I continue to try to learn and deepen my understanding of Hawaiian culture. and Olelo Hawaii, that those words would be infused into the story, into the book. And so I wrote those into the book, and I researched them thoroughly to ensure their diacritical Hawaiian Olelo Hawaii accuracy. And in December of 2023, as I had really prayed over and really meditated intentionally about how could I bring this story to life in terms of illustrations, in terms of visual aloha. And I really tried to surrender into this process. And I finally landed upon Tiara Kobayashi-Bautista, who is a Maui-based artist. It was important to me to have a Maui-based artist and somebody who also is connected to Lahaina, connected to our island, connected to all of it. And who wanted to immerse and be part of the linear path forward, and who was willing to go on this journey with me, because it was going to be the book, I believe is beautifully written and reverently written, but it also requires a plunge into all of the emotions that were part of it. The trauma, the loss, the grief, the resurgence, the acts of aloha, the hope for the future. And so she graciously agreed to lend her talents and her artistry and her creativity and her innovation to this project. And from the very first email, I remember sending it to her. I was actually visiting the Big Island, and I was in a beautiful little chapel overlooking a spot in Kona. And I was kind of pushing cord around while she was napping. She was about 5 months old at the time. 6 months old, 5, 6 months old. And I remember her graciously accepting. And from there, we began a 9-month journey of illustrating the story, of going through all of the emotions together, of introducing Lahaina, of traveling back into the past and its glory and within the kingdom of Hawaii, of telling and illustrating the tragedy of the wildfire that day, and of the immediate aftermath and the acts of aloha that were seen, and of an invitation to be the branches that I want to extend for the readers, that they are now part of the branches of the banyan tree. And as Lahaina moves forward in a new glory, that they can choose to be part of the nonlinear healing path ahead. And will they choose to be part of that, the ho'ola, the healing? And will they choose to read this story and paddle out through the pages and really embrace all of the concepts of core, beautiful Hawaiian values that are infused, that I have learned and continue to learn about through the story. And I am so grateful to Tiara. She came to me initially once I had introduced the book, and I had sent her it was a very vulnerable ask, and hey, it was a cold email to her and explaining, this is me, this is what I've written, and here it is, and do you want to read it? And she had come back, and it's told from the banyan tree, and she had come back with, yes, I want to invest in this, I want to do this, and absolutely, with unwavering aloha. And I want to, what do you think about doing it from various perspectives of the banyan tree? And it just had begun this beautiful dialogue. And the result of this story is truly another story within a story of us, in a sacred sisterhood, going through all the emotions that it took to bring this to life in a way that felt reverent for our community, and that we always remain grounded in wanting it to plant the seeds back into the community and revitalization efforts. And so in the months that have followed, we have illustrated, and then I have edited through multiple rounds, and getting it into a place and space where I feel that it is so beautiful and so raw and so real and so authentic, and that it has accomplished what I hope it to have done, to be an honoring of Lahaina and an admiration of Lahaina, and and just wrapped in the spirit of aloha, and wrapped in a deep respect for Hawaiian culture and Olelo Hawaii, the Hawaiian language, and an offering for those impacted and for their future, that they they are not alone, and that we will tell their story, and that the banyan tree holds their memories in its scarred trunk, and yet it shows the signs of resiliency in everything. And this is it. This is the Āina That Is Lāhainā, and I hope that it may make its way into your outstretched shakas, and it may make an impact on you. This is there's several flags, but this is the one of the flags from Hawaii on Lahaina, and of course the whale tail fluke and a honu, among many things. And there used to be a sugarcane train that came through, and some of the Front Street buildings, just as a wraparound on the cover. But it feels so monumental, so right, and so aligned. And there were many, many points of surrender along the way with this story, with creating it, with finding an illustrator, and landing with Tiara, and in designing it, and in editing it, and in the design of the book. Many, many, many points of surrender. And I always chose to believe that everything was happening for our highest good, for Lahaina's highest good, and that the time would align for it to surf into the world. And it has come, it is coming. And that is some of the thoughts and raw behind the story of me, Dr. Nini, and what I hope Lahaina, the Āina That Is Lāhainā, will be for Lahaina, for Maui. Aloha.